This is a question in terms of the practice of non-resistance or peacefulness. So in terms of practicing peaceful, equanimous non-resistance, could this not in fact be enabling harm? For example, if one tolerates abuse or injustice without resistance, does this not just allow and even encourage harmful behavior to continue unchecked? I can understand that violence is wrong to a degree, but maybe it is justified if it is used to destroy something that causes harm to oneself and others. So isn't...
Well, it depends what your priorities are. If you want to live in a better world that's still fundamentally subjected to destruction and samsara, then yes, there is a line there that you can cross and defend, protect, make the society better through fighting injustice and all of that. But that's still a worldly affair. But if you want to practice to be free from samsara, then it has to be taken in a universal sense, without exception. So anything worldly, including good things in the world, are an equal trap, and they have to also be abandoned. So that's why the precepts are not really negotiable. Because see, you will not be able to not act out of attachment, gratuitously assume possessions, craving, desire, and passion when you are fighting the injustice, when you're defending, the righteous ownership. You won't be able. So you have a choice. You could be worldly righteous person, but that means you will disqualify yourself from practicing Dhamma rightly. If that's the choice you make. No, I will defend because it's important to me. Okay, that means abandoning the ownership that's the root of suffering and the whole samsara. It's not important to you because they're mutually exclusive.
So you can't have fighting and defending
without implicit possession, ownership, which is all kind of a mistaken already, that's mistaken sense of identity that you are perpetuating through such acts.
You are attached. You can't.
You cannot not be. You don't start neutral, as I often say. So yes, exactly. I mean, freedom from samsara means freedom from the world. Just or unjust world means abandoning it all to its own means and devices. It's not your problem. Or if you could choose to make it your problem, but even then you choose so because you have a desire to do so. So it's never justifiable either way. Nothing. Freedom from samsara and complete arahantship is not written in the sky as a must for everyone. Fighting for injustice, fighting against injustice in the world, it's not justifiable either. Whatever you choose to do is because you chose to do so. So if you want to practice for arahantship, it's on the basis of you choosing to do so. If you want to fight for the betterment of the world, it's again because you have a desire that you follow and you make choices accordingly. So if you recognize that it's up to you to decide, that whatever you choose, the weight of that will be on you. So see, if you choose to practice for samsara, to freedom from samsara, the weight of abandoning the world and not protecting those in need of protection and stuff, that will be on you. But if you choose to fight for those and abandon your path of liberation against samsara, well, that weight of that will be on you. So it's up to you to decide really what you want and then take responsibility for it and do it.
And you can
But you can't do it both. If you're honest, you will recognize that these choices are mutually exclusive. You can't do it. You can't have it all. So which is more important to you? A better world now? But then, the uncertain future, because you might well fix all the world problems and you'll die. And what do you think? The world will stay perfect forever after? Greed, aversion, delusion of other individuals will not prevail as it always does. So you recognize it's an immediately visible thing I can do that can immediately verify my efforts, but it's relatively futile overall. From a greater scheme of things, it's not going to make a difference. Like things, change.
Yeah, why am I?
Practice samsara, well, it's not immediately verifiable. It might take years before you get even any insight into freedom from suffering and so on. But if you succeed, well, it's the ultimate impact. So there is some risk involved, but then there is a greater reward. The other one has less risk involved because you can immediately judge your efforts of success, whether the injustice is disappearing and so on. But the reward is lesser. It's lesser. It's not as lasting either. So it's really not. People pose this question as if, like, well, what's the Buddhist perspective? There is no Buddhist perspective on social issues. As far as the Buddhist perspective goes, is keep the 5 precepts for those concerned in the world that don't want to abandon the world. The Buddha only taught suffering and freedom from it. That's the Buddhist perspective. So if that's not what you're interested in, then keep the 5 precepts and be a good man and look after your family and try not to harm others. But
yeah, that's the best advice.
That's the extent of the advice you can give
for
worldly affairs. Doesn't matter.
Affairs. The best advice.
So the Buddhist perspective is free yourself from suffering. And
it's
for
better.
that, of course, it's better. But if you choose not to do it, then the Buddhist perspective does not apply to you. But the reason I bring this up is because that question often comes from somebody who kind of implies both. I am practicing ultimately, but look, all of this. So surely we can find a common ground here. I can kill if it's, a bad person, they would defend others and stuff. You can, but that disqualifies you pretty severely from any successful practice of the Dhamma. Or same, like, with lying. Oh, sometimes it's good to lie because, you might save a life and stuff. Well, there are many factors you can start considering. But again, is it a worldly concern? Is it for the betterment of the world and stuff? You save lives, but again, what will those lives be used for? Proliferation of sensuality and stuff? What if those lives now commit even greater harm in the future? People make different choices. So now that's on you, isn't it? The good deed. So it's like you're interfering, you're engaging in worldly affairs, which means there are going to be consequences, good or bad, one way or the other, you will remain bound to it. That's the point. If that's your choice, fine. But don't entertain the idea that you can do both.
And not be bound to it by doing worldly things and not be bound to it because you are Buddhist and you imagine detachment every now and then.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's not. So I think most of the work basically just comes to developing this self-honesty and really recognizing where that hard choice is, and then seeing, because like sometimes you have people that think they can't abandon the worldly affairs and practice rightly because this choice was not clear to them. Once the choice becomes clear, they realize actually they have it in them to do it. And then you also have people that think they're doing it, but they're doing it because the choice is not clear. Once the choice becomes clear, they realize they can't do it. They can't give up the world.
As long as the choice is clear, that's the
important part. Yeah.
Then you know that you're not. Well, then you're not fooling yourself.
You're not. Yeah. Because again, it's the clarity, the absence of the clarity, thinking that you can do both. That's why the person that could actually is able to give up the world and do it. That's why they're not doing it. Because they haven't been told, they haven't learned, it hasn't sunk in that, no, I need to recognize that I can't do both. And because of that, they're not really doing it rightly because just they think they can have a bit of this and a bit of that. And the one that's thinking they're really practicing rightly, on the basis of ignoring that very clarity of that choice that needs to be made, then once they recognize that, then they'll realize, oh, I don't want to do this. If this is required, if this choice is required for the beginning of the practice, then I don't want to do it. So the only reason they were doing it is because they were not doing it. But it's a clear cut between worldly affairs. Every like all those instructions in the suttas about, given to the monks, the Anapanasati or Satipatthana, or just general jhana instruction, those reflections when they go into the kuti, and the kuti is empty, and then they reflect on that and how nothing belongs to them and nobody, and they don't belong to anybody. And it all kind of begins with that basic mindfulness, which as a prerequisite, the basic mindfulness as a prerequisite has overcoming all the joys and concerns in regard to the world, no exception. Completely withdrawn from it. Then you can start the right cultivations. And I think today that whole mess between like, you can do both, and Buddhist perspective on this and that, and the Buddha taught lay people how to practice same like he did the monks, which he never did. And it's like that all exists just because, well, this hasn't been stated hard enough.
Buddha teaches compassion. That's whatever compassion.
Whatever compassion I do, yeah.
Or I deem as
the
compassion. That is practicing Buddhism.
Yeah. So then you could see like how naturally then, you can't really blame people.
Yeah.
Because naturally then leads to, okay, so what's then the Buddhist perspective on this issue? What do you do in this issue? All completely worldly issues. And usually it kind of revolves on like basically some worldly solution or the other. Yeah, I remember that person once asked somebody else, not me, but I was there, and he was asking like, what does the Buddhism offer? What does the Buddhism do to all the starving children in Southeast Asia? It was maybe in the news or something. There was some big starvation, children dying, not enough food, not enough means. What does you being a monk, what does Buddhism do for that? And this person, obviously, I don't know, maybe they got caught with that question. They just started answering, but you realize, hold on, like that's a completely wrong question. It's like, would you go to a random bus driver and ask them, what does your bus driving do to starving children in Indonesia? You wouldn't. It wouldn't even occur to you to bring the two together. But somehow, your life of a monk has to be doing something for that. So it was like, you don't ask any other profession because it's not your problem. But somehow it's expected that Buddhism must involve itself in this. It must offer a perspective. But the point is, ironically, Buddhism does a lot more. If they were actually following the Buddhist principles, they would not have had so many children. They would have not engaged in sexual intercourse. They would have practiced restraint. There would be no starving children. But it's because people were giving into sensuality, men and women alike, not thinking through that there is not enough means for them to survive, and producing children left and right. Now there is not enough food to feed, and children are dying. It's horrible. But it could have been prevented if they follow the Buddhist principle, if they follow what the monk says. Keep the precepts, and if you proliferate, if you have children, you have to do it wisely, with a purpose, with a recognition, with perspective. Not just, we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it does a lot, but you have to follow it. But this expectation that the Buddhist teaching and the practice has to be appeasing the worldly affairs, it's not supposed to. Me being a monk is not supposed to help starving children. It's supposed to free me from samsara, hopefully with enough understanding so that I can teach it to others who want to do that profession, who want to choose the path of leaving the world and freeing themselves from samsara. That's it. It's a very limited application. Taste of salt. The sea has only one taste, which is a taste of salt. As the Buddha said, his teaching has only one taste, which is freedom from suffering. That's it. But how does your freedom from suffering help my architectural degree? Your practice for freedom from suffering? It's an absolutely rational question. Yet it's often asked in this Buddhist circle because the whole perversion of the values and blurring the lines, whereby now people think, no, you being a monk must also be helping this and helping that.
There is that view that a human being has responsibility to help others.
Yes, yeah.
Everybody has
that's a worldly view.
Yeah. What? Why?
There is, as I said,
your duty to help others.
The only responsibility that you have is basically to recognize that you are the one responsible for your choices and desires. There is no external factor that can justify that. So it's not saying that it's bad to help others. It's just recognizing that it's a direction that requires concern, passion, attachment, involvement.
But if you want to help others, what would be the best thing to do?
Exactly.
And
so
is there a path that helps others
in a greater way?
There is no attachment from your side.
Exactly. And that's the kind of the whole recognition of the bigger picture. Animal realm, human realm is just endless recurring repetition of same stuff. 100 years ago, 500 years ago, same worries, same anxieties, same desires, same battle, same engagement, same injustice, same justice, same fixing, same messing up. And as the Buddha said, it's enough, monks, for revulsion, it's enough for dispassion, recognizing that it's more than enough to inspire you towards complete dispassion, towards the whole thing. You just refuse to look at it. So the practice is really just keeping it in front of your eyes, the obvious, until dispassion will be the natural outcome. So the reason people are not dispassionate is they don't keep this in front of their eyes sufficiently enough. That they don't let it sink in because it's unpleasant. Initially, it's unpleasant. It's like, any hope you know, any desire you have, at least at that point in the beginning, is bound with that world. And now it just feels like all of that is like, none of that is worth it. So it is quite an impactful. But you would calm down within that, and then you will recognize that, well, whether you are upset on account of it or not, that is factually the truth that you can observe even now. Even in your limited experience in this life, you could already see, but how many times already? Now multiple like that by thousandfold, and then nightmare. So even if you do good and help, can you guarantee that things won't change again and won't even get worse? No, and you know it will. So one way or the other, whatever you choose to do, so you do so because you just want to fulfill your desire to do it. That's it. That is like kind of the conviction you have to be serving. Whether you want it or not, that's the extent, that is the extent of your engagement, of your capacity to engage is on the basis of your desire. Good desire, bad desire, still, you're pressured, you're engaged. When that's fulfilled, you can't care even if you want to. You will move on. Your mind will move on. Because when the feeling changes, it's done. So yes, you can often, some people are more compassionate than others. Some people more often revolve around these things, and nobody says that's bad, but it has its expiry date. Limited, very limited, exactly. So that's why the basic practice of mindfulness starts by overcoming the entirety of concerns, choice in regard to anything that comes from the world.